Saint Nicholas. I must admit, the tales of your exploits are indeed quite fantastical. Had our own Twilight Sparkle not found that lost tome of legends and read it out loud to fillies and coats of Ponyville, we wouldn't have even known that you existed. Can you imagine? A nice, peaceful holiday with your loved ones is now, elevated by the promise of your arrival. Don't take this the wrong way, darling. I only mean there is a certain, shift amongst the youth these days. Now, it seems, gingerbread cookies are a necessity rather than a treat. Ugly old stockings must be hung by a fireplace that may have been magicked into a boutique large enough to fit your unique shape. And all the carols that I've heard are sung about you and not the unity of ponykind. Not to mention that the little ones are awake at all hours, anxiously watching the skies for your red sleigh and 8 reindeer. Although, why Pegasi are inferior to reindeer is beyond me. But then again, I'm not a jolly fat stallion who brings presents to the world, so what do I know? I do suppose the concept of being nice is rather useful, though I do shudder at the thought of some pony watching us at all hours, just to dictate how good or naughty we are. Don't you find that a bit, unsettling? Illegal, perhaps? And yet, I am writing to you with my best quill a present wish list, whilst the fillies in my care do the same. I wouldn't have bothered had it not been for their insistence. They are convinced, you see, that I will be deemed naughty if I do not make ludicrous demands of you, and they believe you avoided Ponyville from sheer lack of these letters over the past millennia or so. So, here we are. I thought of a number of trinkets and baubles I could ask for, but instead, I had a thought. If you are so mystical, powerful, and all-seeing, then perhaps your gifts are not limited to such conventional presents. Perhaps, instead, you might grant other wishes? It is simple, really. Saint Nicholas, all I want for hearth warming, something you refer to as Christmas, is a kiss. Now, this kiss cannot be from just any pony. That would be ghastly. No, this kiss must come from a dear, dear friend of mine, Applejack. She has a certain je ne sais quoi that I have yet to observe in any other pony, mare or stallion, a uniqueness that I am hopelessly drawn to. I see that same glint in her eye when we lock gazes. However, she is conflicted, you see, and she hides her feelings from herself. She may pretend that she doesn't see me as anything other than a dear friend, but ladies such as myself obviously know better. But herein lies the problem, dear Nicholas. Being a lady comes with certain expectations. It would be prudent to wait for Applejack to make the first move. Before you go judging me for holding Applejack to this unspoken expectation, you have to understand that I have no qualms in making my feelings known. But this first act of passion simply must come from Applejack. It would embolden her, you see. She needs to embrace her feelings for me so that I can return the favor in kind and quiet the doubt that will certainly surface. If I were to kiss her first, she might pull away in shock and struggle to come to terms with the proposition that that kiss comes with. I would very much like to skip the minutes, hours, days, or even weeks of her ceaseless contemplation and insecurity. She'd probably feel pressured into returning the favor, and do so without actually exploring her innermost desires. The action, therefore, would be hollow and utterly devastating for me. Even if she did accept my advances, I would be forever plagued with a morsel of doubt in our connection. I would spend many a sleepless night wondering if she truly cared for me, or if she was just humoring me. That's a horrible sentiment, don't you agree? The kiss doesn't have to be anything particularly special, though some degree of appropriate atmosphere would certainly be appreciated. Perhaps you could coordinate a moonlit walk after a gentle snowfall with lightning bugs shimmering like stars in the snow while the real stars shine above us. Of course, I know it is certainly not the season for such insects to thrive, but that is where your unique talents of magic come into play. If that is too cumbersome for you, though unbefitting of your hype, I'm sure other arrangements could be made. A private dinner at Sweet Apple Acres, perchance. There would be a clean-pressed plaid tablecloth draped over the family dining table and candles to soften the light in the room to maintain that sensuous atmosphere. A warm, lovingly crafted meal plated to perfection, while a bottle of wine chills in an ice bucket nearby. That seems far more achievable for you, don't you think? Now, this may be asking for too much, but in any appropriate scenario, if you could just make sure that Applejack is dressed to the nines for me, preferably in an ensemble that I have made especially for her. I've given her several frocks and dresses over the years, but she seems recalcitrant to wear them, outside of occasions that I've insisted upon. I did ponder if dresses were the issue. Not all ponies feel comfortable in a gown, though I could never understand why. And yet the waistcoats and tunics I've gifted her also go unworn. I'm sure a little pep talk from a certain mythical entity would convince her otherwise. Yes, she would just be doing it to humor me, but still, you only get to experience your first kiss with a pony of your affections once. Perfection is unattainable, but high standards are not. And there you have it, my only Christmas wish. And since you insist on stalking all of your potential gift recipients, then you would undeniably know that I have been very, very good this year. With the kindest regards, Rarity.
The morning of Heartswarming remained mostly unchanged for Rarity, except for the new traditions set forth by that book Twilight had found. Sweetie Belle, who had spent the night at Carousel Boutique, found presents under the tree and in the oversized stocking hung above the fireplace. Not long after she began tearing at the wrapping paper did their parents finally arrive. Rarity gave them a knowing glance when they entered the boutique, grateful that their spare key had been such an asset for the new holiday. Rarity poured herself and her family a cup of cocoa and enjoyed their company. She received many lovely trinkets and baubles from her loved ones, but the gift she wanted most was predictably absent. As Rarity sipped her cocoa, she couldn't help but feel a slight pang of sadness. Perhaps she hadn't been entirely honest with herself about how much she did or did not believe in this Saint Nicholas. Even so, she put the idea out of her mind so as to not ruin her merriment. That evening, there came an unexpected knock at the boutique door. Rarity was chagrined to have visitors that evening, as she was looking forward to a cozy night alone. Sweetie Belle was staying the night at Rainbow Dashes with the other Crusaders, and her parents had gone home. Begrudgingly, she opened the door to find a sharply dressed Big Macintosh on her doorstep. He wore a top hat adorned with holly leaves and a hand-crocheted green scarf, undoubtedly gift to him earlier in the day. He also wore a black suit jacket that appeared to be pressed and perfect. Behind him, there was a glamorously decorated sleigh with holly, ribbons, and bells.
Big Mac? What's going on?
Rarity asked, thoroughly confused. The stallion didn't audibly reply. He merely outstretched his hoof towards the sleigh with a knowing smile. Rarity eyed him suspiciously, but donned a scarf and a fuzzy hat before venturing into the cold. Soon after, Big Mac harnessed himself into the sleigh and carried the confused unicorn into the night. He took her through Ponyville Street, then deviated from main roads into lesser-used paths that wound through the orchard of Sweet Apple Acres. There didn't appear to be anything of note along their way until they neared the end of their journey. Rarity held her breath in shock when she saw glimpses of candlelight up ahead. The sleigh slowed to a stop in a quiet corner of the orchard that was bare of trees. There, in the snow, were a series of candles in open glass bowls lighting the ground with their brilliant glow. She glanced up from the sight after a few moments of silent surprise to see Applejack waiting in the middle of the clearing, standing on a plaid tablecloth draped over the ground. Applejack was wearing an ensemble that Rarity had gifted her more than a year ago. It was a white tunic sharply paired with a golden waistcoat that had red accents and apple-shaped detailing. It was one of Rarity's favorite outfits she had ever designed for AJ. Applejack shifted her weight on her hooves awkwardly as Big Mac helped Rarity down from the sleigh. Rarity stood motionless in a strange stupor as the sleigh was then pulled away from the pair and out of sight. She saw Applejack adjusting her coat as if it were uncomfortable, a concept that was impossible for anything Rarity had created.
What is all this?
Rarity asked, finally finding her voice. She walked towards Applejack and could see tiny beads of sweat on her brow.
This is, it's,
Applejack broke their gaze to glance to the side, trying to think of some kind of plausible explanation.
I figured this was somewhat close to what you might have expected.
Rarity paused in front of Applejack, her eyes growing wide.
You're setting a romantic atmosphere?
Well, yeah, I guess I am.
Applejack answered with a nervous chuckle to relieve the tension.
Any particular reason why?
Rarity prodded, her hopes soaring high.
I mean, I figured it was kind of obvious.
Applejack answered, adjusting her coat again.
But, I guess I'm gonna have to be the one
There was a short silence between the mares when Applejack didn't finish her sentence. Rarity waited expectantly with her eyes glistening in the candlelight.
Oh, to hell with it.
Applejack muttered before she closed the distance between them and pressed her lips into Rarity's. The kiss lingered, much to Rarity's delight, and it felt far more magical than she had imagined. Applejack had a hoof to her cheek, and when she finally pulled away, it remained there, cupping her face lovingly. Rarity couldn't do anything except melt into those emerald eyes and that crooked smile.
It was Apple Bloom, wasn't it? She gave you my letter.
Rarity whispered, riddling out the clever plan from the Crusaders to make Rarity's wish come true.
Letter? What letter?
The one I wrote to... You mean you haven't read it?
I didn't get any letter, and I certainly didn't tell Apple Bloom about all this. I just figured, well, it's about time I made my intentions known. Can't keep it inside anymore, Rares. I love you.
Rarity's heart beat so quickly she thought she could burst. She smiled and threw her hooves around Applejack, planting a kiss that country earth pony would never be able to forget. It didn't matter that the pony known for her honesty was probably lying to her to preserve the magic. It was still a wish come true.
I love you too.
Applejack sighed in relief and returned the embrace, neither pony pulling away. As the delicate lights around them flickered under starlight, Rarity fell into a happiness from which she hoped she never recover. When at last they parted to take in some air, Rarity glanced upward by chance, and her eyes widened to nearly pop out of her head in bewilderment. There, in the sky, she could have sworn she saw a sleigh and 8 reindeer disappearing from sight.